I want you to think for a second. Imagine you, or even better yet, your own teenage kid out there, being robbed of those teen years and being forced to confess to a crime that it turns out you didn't even commit. Then after being coerced into a confession, you spend 6 to 13 years of your life, including time in a maximum security facility. Well, tonight, that's not a hypothetical. We are talking about the Central Park Five. Those were the young boys who were rounded up and arrested after the horrific rape and beating of the Central Park jogger back in 1989. In 2002, it turned out, another man confessed to the crime, and DNA evidence in the case confirmed that he, in fact, was the attacker. Now, the Central Park Five have reached a settlement with the city of New York. Raymond Santana, one of the men who was wrongfully convicted in the case, says despite all the evidence pointing to their innocence, they're still fighting a battle with the naysayers.
The Donald Trumps, the Ann Coulters, you know, the bloggers who still say that we're guilty or that we're guilty of something, you know, because they just can't let it go. They just can't let it go that we were innocent and that we didn't commit this crime at the end of the day. Reyes has told you on more than one occasion that it was him and him alone. The DNA match. What more do you need?
Well, Dominic sat down with Raymond Santana earlier today.
Richard, Raymond Santana was only 14 years old when he was arrested. Anywhere between 15 and 30 hours of being questioned by police in one small, cold room with no food and no sleep. The world knows he was one of the 5 young men convicted. Raymond Santana is not a fan of Donald Trump and says he feels sorry for Trump. Santana says back in 1989, they were considered, quote, the worst human beings on planet Earth. And even members of his own family thought he was guilty. Raymond Santana, here we are at Melba's Restaurant, a popular restaurant in Harlem, 4 blocks from Central Park. You can see Central Park from this restaurant. A park that changed your life forever on the evening of April 19th, 1989. A lot has changed since then. How do you feel?
You know, it's still a park that affects my life to this day. Since '89, I have never been in that park. We drive by it all the time. I never go in there. My daughter now is 10 years old. I don't take her that way just because I don't want her to see the numerous playgrounds. So she said, Daddy, can we go in there and play? So I avoid it at all times.
You haven't been in Central Park since 1989?
Since 1989. And I go by it all the time. I live 4 blocks away. You know, I take alternative routes so that my daughter doesn't want to go into the park because it affects me that much.
Why? Why does it affect you at this stage of your life? Because
it's still something I still have to deal with every day. I'm no longer Raymond Santana, the childhood friend, the cousin, you know, the guy, the next door neighbor. I'm Raymond Santana, Central Park 5. And so that label would never go away. You know, that label will always be there until I go to my grave. The only thing is that now it stands for something that's a little more positive.
What does that label mean, Central Park 5?
Well, back in 1990, we was the worst human beings on the planet Earth. You know, in prison to be known as, to be labeled a rapist, you know, the only thing that trumps that is a child molester. And then now, you know, Central Park 5, it puts an emphasis on it, you know, and that label is very negative back then.
How old were you? You were what, about 14, 15 when this happened?
14 years old. 14
years old. And when you were placed in custody at that age, you either went to Spofford or Rikers. Which one did they send you to?
Spofford.
At Spofford.
Yes.
The case is settled now, but are you bitter?
I'm not bitter, but there's still this, I wouldn't say bitterness, but it's still, like we say in the hood, it's always to be on point. And there's still that aspect with me because I've been fighting this case for so long that, you know, for now to just drop it and say that it's over, it's difficult. Every morning I wake up ready to fight, ready to do an interview, ready to talk to some kids, ready to tell the story. And then now it's like, is it over? That's not that simple for me.
Does money settle this? Does money make you feel better? Does that make this right?
Money at this point wasn't the object. You know, for us it was about the closure. Now that we reached the closure, What do we do next? So the money, really the money goes more to my daughter. It secures her future, it gives her a chance, you know, and whatever we decide to do, you know, for the kids in the community, it gives them a chance. But what does it do for me? I'm about to be 40 years old.
What do you mean money for the kids in the community?
Well, you know, whatever we decide to do to give back to our people in our community.
You're going to give back with some of this money?
You know, it has to be. I mean, our community supported us so strongly. We have a duty to these kids. We have a duty to this generation that's coming up to be a major influence in their lives, to bring about some change.
When I say the name Donald Trump, what goes through your mind?
You know, this was the man who put out a full-page ad to give us the death penalty. And we're talking about 14 and 15-year-old kids. He wanted to kill us. You know, now we've been exonerated. He comes back, you know, all these years later, he still says we're guilty. It's pathetic. You know, sometimes you gotta feel sorry for a person like that because of their way of thinking is so twisted. This is the man who went after the president, you know?
Mr. Trump called this settlement of some $40 million, I'm quoting here, Mr. Trump calls it a disgrace.
Well, I mean, you know, you're talking about a man who hasn't done anything for our community, you know. He doesn't put any programs in our community. Only thing he does is take from us. He never gave us nothing back.
Let me ask you this about Mr. Trump, and I'm quoting here. He has implied that even now, somehow you guys are involved in this. And I'm quoting Donald Trump. He says, settling does not mean innocence.
Well, you know, with Donald Trump, he's going by the Armstrong report. The Armstrong report was written by, you know, a distinguished lawyer who works for the police department by the name of Michael Armstrong. And it just shows you what this man deals with. When people read that report, it's about a 50-page document, and it brings about theories of how they think that we're still guilty. And all those theories have numerous holes in them. None of them will stand up in court.
Would you like to one day meet Donald Trump?
No, I have no desire to, at all.
Why not?
Unless it came with an apology.
So if Donald Trump apologized to you, you would meet with him?
Yeah, maybe.
We both know that that's probably not going to happen.
So we don't even entertain that thought.
Wow. You have said that you feel you're still eyed with suspicion by many people. Is that accurate?
Yes. You know, there's the bloggers, you know, we call them, you know, the internet gangsters who still like to get on the social media, the ann-coulters who write articles and say that we're still guilty. None of them have no real evidence to prove that. But, you know, they all go by the Armstrong report.
Did police, now that you look back at this, did police trick you into a confession?
Yes, definitely. It was coercion, it was trickery. They used everything in the book against us. You know, you know, the taking away of the basic necessities. You know, the sleep, no water, you know, being in the question and it's cold in there. You know, this goes back to the Reed technique, the 9 steps on how to get a confession. They use that to the T.
How long were you in a room when this happened by police and the district attorney's office?
There's estimated that I was in there over 15 to 30 hours.
In one room?
Yes.
With no food?
No food.
And no sleep?
No sleep.
A lot of people watching us right now, they have a hard time understanding that someone would confess to a crime that they didn't commit. And how do you respond to that?
You know, first people have to know the dynamics of a false confession, what takes place around it. Like I just told you, you know, the no sleep, the no food, the being in the room for, you know, several hours, you know, the good cop, bad cops, that's stuff that you see on Law and Order, which is true, it happens all the time. But the difference is that those people who go into those situations, 9 times out of 10 are 14, they're minors, or, you know, maybe they don't have a high education level, or it's just pressure. When you walk into something that's unknown, you don't know what's going to happen to you. You feel at this point that the police can kill you and get away with it. As we see, it happens all the time. So when you walk into an element that is unsure of, or you don't know when it's going to stop, how long this process is going to take, that starts to break you down.
In 2014, present, how do you feel about police officers?
You know, I think for us, because we speak about this all the time, it's about those who run the police force, those who are in charge, those who make the rules, the policies, the procedures. Those are the ones that we got to hold accountable. You know, growing up, you seen a police officer, when I was real little, I lived in the Bronx, and a police officer would come in and he knew the whole neighborhood. He knew the store owners, he knew my mother, he knew my father, and now there's none of that. There's no police and community relation. So I can't put the whole blame on so-called police officers, because I have come across numerous police officers who support the Central Park 5.
That actually support you?
That actually support us.
Are you afraid of the police in 2014?
I'm not afraid of them, maybe a little bit hesitant, but we have come across situations where, like Yusuf had been stopped by police, and when they found out who he was, they asked him to come be a part of their PAL program. So, really not too much afraid.
You feel you didn't have a voice in 1989?
That's correct, I didn't.
Why do you say that?
I was 14 years old. I didn't know the system. You know, I was a timid kid, afraid, and not that many people stood up for us. I came from a big family. A lot of them thought I was guilty. That's why my bail.
Your own family?
My own family. That's why my bail money was never raised.
So he stayed in jail awaiting his trial because, as he just said, some of his own family members thought that he was guilty. As far, Richard, as this $40 to $41 million settlement, remember, the attorneys take a third right off the top, and the settlement covers 5 people. Santana says for now he plans to continue working and continue living in Harlem. We would like he says he would like to sit down one day and meet the Central Park jogger, and he talks about that, Richard, and much more. That's coming up tomorrow night.
And just to remind, I know a lot of people at home, this is very vivid for them, but the term wilding came out of this. And in 1989, when this story broke, there was a frenzy. That, you know, they saw the kids, people wanted justice, people couldn't believe in Central Park that this happened. And then we all know how the story turned out. All right, we take a quick break here, and Dominic and the panel are going to join us and talk about the case and the justice aspect of it, and whether or not there's any such thing in equity when it comes to reparations or not. Stay with us. We'll be right back.